The April morning in 2014 seemed routine for Detective Captain Michael Rodriguez of the LAPD, until his phone began ringing incessantly. On the other end, the agitated voice of Sergeant Patricia Chen was communicating something that seemed to defy the limits of reason. "Captain, you need to get to UCLA immediately. The new surveillance system caught something that shouldn't exist. It's about Jessica Martinez." That name made his mind travel back 12 years. Jessica Martinez, the third-year psychology student who had vanished without a trace on an October night in 2002, right from the UCLA campus courtyard. A case that still haunted him, his first major failure as a young detective. When Captain Rodriguez arrived at UCLA, he found the entire campus in turmoil. Students had gathered in small groups, whispering and pointing toward the Powell Library building, where tech teams had installed a modern HD surveillance system in recent months as part of a campus security upgrade. What these cameras had managed to record the previous night defied any logical explanation. Jessica Martinez had been, 12 years ago, one of UCLA's most brilliant students. At 20 years old, this young woman from Riverside with long chestnut hair and hypnotic green eyes was considered a genius in cognitive psychology. Professors described her as an exceptional mind, capable of understanding the complexities of the human psyche in a way that amazed those around her. Born into a modest family, her father was a mechanic at a Riverside auto shop, and her mother worked as a medical assistant at the local hospital. Jessica had earned her place at one of California's most prestigious universities through hard work and determination. The small apartment she rented near Westwood was sparsely furnished, filled with psychology and philosophy books in different languages she had taught herself. In the fall of 2002, Jessica was working on a revolutionary thesis about temporal perception in altered states of consciousness. Her research focused on a daring theory that under certain conditions, the human mind could access fragments from other temporal lines, an idea considered heretical in the academic environment of that time. Professor David Thompson, her thesis advisor from the psychology department, perfectly remembered their last meeting. Jessica had come to his office in a state of almost feverish excitement, claiming she had discovered a method to induce these temporal shifts through advanced meditation techniques combined with sleep deprivation. "Professor Thompson, I think I've found the key," she had told him, her eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "Consciousness isn't limited to the present. It can navigate through time under special conditions. I've managed to experience fragments of what appears to be the future." Professor Thompson, while impressed by his student's intelligence, was worried about her mental state. Jessica was sleeping less and less, spending nights in the university library studying ancient mystical texts and quantum physics, trying to find connections between apparently incompatible disciplines. The evening of October 15, 2002, marked the beginning of one of the most bizarre investigations in LAPD history. Jessica had been seen for the last time around 11 p.m. in the UCLA campus courtyard, near Powell Library. A philosophy student, Ryan Patterson, had seen her sitting on a bench, staring fixedly at the full moon shining through the foliage of the old oak trees. "It was like she wasn't really there," Ryan had told the police. "She was looking up with an expression I'd never seen before. It was like she was waiting for something or someone." UCLA's security systems in 2002 were rudimentary, just a few black and white cameras with very poor resolution. The last image of Jessica showed her getting up from the bench and heading toward the sculpture garden, but after that, any trace of her was lost in the void. Initial investigations focused on standard hypotheses: murder, kidnapping, suicide, or voluntary disappearance. Detective Michael Rodriguez, then 28 years old and on his first major investigation, had interrogated hundreds of students, professors, and university staff. No one could explain what might have happened to Jessica. Her family was devastated. Carmen Martinez, Jessica's mother, came to Los Angeles every day from Riverside, walking through the places her daughter used to frequent, asking people if they had seen her. Her father, Roberto Martinez, a quiet and hard-working man who had placed all his hopes in his daughter's education, had aged prematurely under the weight of loss. Jessica's room in her rented apartment revealed a brilliant mind that had perhaps come too close to the limits of human knowledge. The walls were covered with complex diagrams that combined mathematical formulas with esoteric symbols. Her personal journal contained increasingly disconnected entries about time shifts and dimensional intersections. One of the last entries, dated a week before her disappearance, was particularly disturbing. I've seen fragments from 2014. Los Angeles is changing. UCLA has new cameras, more powerful ones. I see myself, but different. I need to understand what this means. The official investigation closed after a year, classified as a disappearance under unknown circumstances. But Detective Rodriguez, now captain, had never forgotten that intelligent young face that had vanished without explanation. Over the years, he had sporadically received reports from people who thought they had seen her in different parts of the city, but all leads had proven false. In 2014, 12 years after the disappearance, UCLA had installed a modern surveillance system as part of a campus modernization project. The HD cameras could record in low-light conditions and had the capability to detect very subtle movements. On the night of October 14, 2014, exactly 12 years after Jessica's disappearance, these cameras had recorded something extraordinary. At exactly 11 p.m., the system detected a presence in the campus courtyard, but what the cameras showed seemed to defy any rational explanation. A female silhouette, vague and almost transparent, appeared for a few seconds next to the same bench where Jessica had been seen for the last time in 2002. The images were shocking, not just because the presence seemed spectral, but also because the biometrics of the silhouette perfectly matched those of Jessica Martinez. The facial recognition system, programmed to compare against the missing persons database, offered a 96% probability that the person in the images was Jessica. But the most inexplicable aspect was that the silhouette didn't appear to have aged at all. In the spectral images, the woman looked exactly like Jessica at 20, not 32, as she would have been in 2014. Captain Rodriguez, now an experienced detective with salt and pepper hair at his temples, had studied the recordings for hours. Computer analysis confirmed there were no signs of digital manipulation. The images were authentic, but presented something that contradicted known laws of physics. Dr. Sarah Kim, professor at the UCLA Physics Department, was consulted to analyze the phenomenon. After careful examination of the data, her conclusion was equally disconcerting. The images suggested the presence of an organized energy form that interacted with the visible spectrum, but didn't respect the normal physical parameters of matter. It's as if we're dealing with a projection, Dr. Kim explained. Something that exists simultaneously in our physical space and elsewhere. Quantum theory allows for such phenomena, but only at the subatomic level. For an entire human to manifest quantum properties, it's inconceivable. The surveillance technology expert, engineer Mark Williams, confirmed that the system was functioning perfectly on that night. There were no interferences, technical problems, or conventional explanations for what the cameras had recorded. The Martinez family was informed about the discovery with caution. Carmen Martinez, now 58 years old and prematurely grayed by grief, had come to Los Angeles to see the images. Her reaction was immediate. It was her daughter, without any doubt. "I know how she moves, I know how she sits," she said through tears. "It's Jessica, but where has she been all these years? And why hasn't she aged?" The case was taken over by a multidisciplinary team that included police officers, physicists, psychologists, and even parapsychologists from the Institute for Paranormal Research at UCLA. Theories began to multiply, each more phantasmagorical than the previous one. Dr. James Mitchell, an internationally recognized parapsychologist, studied the case for months. His conclusion was that Jessica could be trapped in a temporal loop, a hypothetical phenomenon where consciousness remains blocked at a particular moment in time, repeating it endlessly. Jessica's research from 2002 regarding temporal perception could have brought her too close to a dangerous understanding of the nature of temporality, Dr. Mitchell explained. It's possible she managed to displace her consciousness from the present, but remained trapped between dimensions. In the following months, the team installed specialized equipment in the UCLA courtyard, hoping to capture the phenomenon again. Electromagnetic detectors, infrared thermometers, energy field measurement devices, everything modern science could offer for understanding this mystery. On January 15, 2015, exactly 3 months after the first recording, the cameras captured the spectral presence again. This time, the images were clearer and less fragmented. Jessica seemed to be sitting on the same bench but wasn't looking at the sky as in 2002. She was looking directly at the camera, as if she knew she was being filmed. Most shocking was that this time, she seemed to be trying to communicate. Her lips were moving in a rhythm that suggested she was speaking. but the audio systems couldn't capture any sound. Lip-reading experts were brought in to analyze the images, but the movements were too fast and stroboscopic to be deciphered. Dr. Elena Vasquez, researcher at the Institute for Quantum Studies at Caltech, was called to analyze the electromagnetic spectrum during the moments when the phenomenon occurred. Her discoveries were astounding. At those moments, there were fluctuations in quantum fields that suggested a rupture in the fabric of spacetime. While not accepted by mainstream science, it's possible that under extreme conditions, consciousness can detach from the normal temporal matrix, Dr. Vasquez explained. Jessica could exist in an intermediate state between dimensions, capable of manifesting periodically in our reality. Captain Rodriguez authorized the implementation of an unprecedented experimental protocol. On the night of April 15, 2015, the team would attempt to establish direct communication with Jessica's spectral presence. For this, they had installed in the campus courtyard a complex system of light and sound signal emission that would be activated in synchronization with manifestation moments. The preparations took weeks. Psychologists established a sequence of simple questions that could be answered through head movements or gestures. Engineers calibrated systems to amplify any weak signals the presence might emit. On April 15, 2015, at 11 p.m., the entire UCLA campus transformed into an open-air laboratory. Equipment worth millions of dollars, specialists from across the country and abroad, media representatives, and Jessica's family, all waited to witness what could be the first documented contact with a consciousness disappeared in time. At the appointed time, the apparatus detected the presence again, but this time, the manifestation was different. Jessica no longer seemed like a simple spectral projection. The image was more solid, more present, and for the first time, she seemed to observe the equipment and people surrounding her. When Dr. Mitchell activated the first light signal, a sequence meaning, "Can you see us?" Jessica responded with a clear up and down movement of her head. A murmur of amazement crossed the crowd of observers. The following questions were answered with a clarity that eliminated any doubt they were dealing with a conscious and reactive intelligence. When asked if she knew she was in 2015, Jessica seemed confused, looking around with an expression of incomprehension. For her, it appeared she was still in 2002. The most emotional moment was when her mother, Carmen Martinez, was brought before the cameras. When the system emitted the question, "Do you recognize your mother?" Jessica looked in the direction where Carmen stood and began making frantic gestures, as if trying to approach, but couldn't. Carmen began crying and shouting her daughter's name. In a moment that remained etched in the memory of all present, Jessica raised her hand and seemed to try to extend it toward her mother, but her hand passed through air as through a void, unable to touch physical reality. Dr. Vasquez observed that at that moment, electromagnetic fluctuations had reached maximum levels. It was as if Jessica's effort to touch physical reality created a distortion in the space-time fabric around her. "Where are you now?" was the next question transmitted through light signals. Jessica's response, transmitted through gestures, was interpreted by experts as "between worlds" or "in a place that doesn't exist." To the question, "Do you want to return?" Jessica responded with an intensity that seemed to make her entire manifestation stronger. Yes, obviously she wanted to return. But how? The team of theoretical physicists, coordinated by Dr. Kim, developed a revolutionary theory over the following months. Based on research from Jessica's journal and data collected during her manifestations, they proposed that the young woman had indeed managed to displace her consciousness from the present through her experiments from 2002. But instead of accessing the future as she believed, Jessica had detached her consciousness from the normal temporal flow, remaining trapped in an intermediate dimension. From this position, she could observe different moments in reality's timeline but couldn't interact directly with them, except under very special conditions. "It's as if she's trapped in a room with windows to different time periods," Dr. Kim explained. "She can see through them but can't exit. Her manifestations in our reality are moments when the window becomes temporarily permeable. Theoretically, there was a possibility of bringing her back by recreating the exact conditions from the moment of her disappearance. This required precise understanding of Jessica's mental state in October 2002 and a recreation of the energetic context from that moment. The team decided to attempt an unprecedented experiment. On October 15, 2015, exactly 13 years after the disappearance, they would try to recreate all conditions from the night Jessica had vanished. This meant rearranging the campus courtyard exactly as it was in 2002, using the same type of lighting, and bringing Jessica's personal objects that could function as emotional anchors. Preparations for the repatriation experiment, as it had begun to be called in the media, took months. The Martinez family donated all of Jessica's preserved possessions, her clothes, books, journal, even the perfume she used. These were arranged in the campus courtyard in an exact recreation of her dorm room from 2002. Psychologists who had studied Jessica's journal constructed a precise profile of her mental state in the final days before disappearance. They believed she was in an altered state of consciousness induced by the combination of intensive meditation, sleep deprivation, and obsessive concentration on her theories about time. To recreate this state, the team brought in a specialist in advanced hypnosis and meditation to reproduce the techniques Jessica had used. Dr. Marcus Stevens, one of California's most respected hypnologists, analyzed in detail the methods described in Jessica's journal. What she did was extremely dangerous, Dr. Stevens explained. She used ancestral consciousness-altering techniques combined with concepts from modern physics to try to detach her spirit from time. It's a miracle she didn't completely lose her mind. On October 15, 2015, at 11 p.m., the UCLA campus became once again the center of a unique scientific experience. International media had gathered to document what could be the first attempt in history to retrieve a person from what scientists had begun calling the interdimension. Carmen Martinez, now 59 years old, was positioned exactly where she had stood in 2002, hoping her presence could serve as a magnetic force for Jessica. When the monitoring systems detected the spectral presence again, the entire atmosphere seemed to become electrically charged. But this time, Jessica's manifestation was different from all previous ones. She appeared more solid, more anchored in reality, and for the first time, audio equipment managed to capture the sound of her voice. "Mom, I'm here. I can see you." The voice was weak, distorted, as if coming from very far away, but unmistakable to Carmen. "Jessica, my daughter," Carmen shouted, extending her hands toward her daughter's spectral image. What followed was emotional for everyone present. For the first time in 13 years, mother and daughter seemed able to touch each other. Jessica's hand no longer passed through air as through an immaterial substance, but seemed to meet the resistance of her mother's hand. Dr. Vasquez observed that electromagnetic fluctuations had reached critical levels. It was as if the barrier between dimensions was beginning to weaken. "Can I come back now?" Jessica asked with her ethereal voice. The specialists had fine-tuned all apparatus to amplify and stabilize her manifestation. After years of preparations and calculations, the moment of truth had arrived. Could Jessica be brought back from the dimension where she was? "Follow my voice and come to me," her mother shouted, using exactly the words she had spoken every night for the past 13 years, hoping that somewhere, somehow, her daughter would hear her. What followed seemed to defy all known laws of science. Jessica's image began to become increasingly solid, more present. Equipment detected increasingly intense electromagnetic fluctuations. It appeared she was gradually managing to rematerialize in reality. But at the moment when it seemed the experiment would succeed, something went wrong. The apparatus began to overload under the pressure of energy fields generated by the process. Monitoring systems started failing one by one. In the final seconds before the entire apparatus failed, Jessica managed to emit a clear message. "I can't return completely, but I can be here sometimes. I love you." Then, with a blinding flash that illuminated the entire campus courtyard, all equipment stopped. When monitoring systems were restored, Jessica had disappeared again. But this time, her disappearance wasn't complete. In the weeks that followed, people began reporting seeing her in different parts of Los Angeles. Unlike previous reports, these sightings seemed to be authentic. Jessica appeared to have gained the ability to temporarily materialize in reality, though she couldn't remain permanently. UCLA students said they sometimes saw her in the library, reading the same psychology books she had studied years ago. Workers at coffee shops near Westwood said they had seen her sitting at the same tables where she used to study before disappearing. Each time she was observed, Jessica seemed to still be 20 years old. Time had stopped for her in that October moment in 2002, but now she could periodically visit the reality from which she had vanished. Carmen Martinez developed a strange ritual. Every day, for an hour, she sat on the bench in the campus courtyard where her daughter had been seen for the last time, and sometimes, for a few precious minutes, Jessica appeared next to her. They couldn't have long conversations. and Jessica couldn't stay long. But those moments gave both of them respite from 13 years of separation. "It's as if she lives between two worlds," Dr. Mitchell explained in an interview for national television. "She's become a being that exists simultaneously in multiple realities, able to navigate between them under certain conditions." Jessica's case revolutionized American scientific understanding of the nature of consciousness and its relationship with time. UCLA established a new interdisciplinary research department dedicated to studying non-linear consciousness phenomena. The international community of theoretical physicists and psychologists began coming to Los Angeles to study the Jessica phenomenon, as it became known in specialized literature. Theories about the nature of time and consciousness were fundamentally changed by the experience of this young student, who, in seeking truth, had managed to transcend the normal boundaries of existence. For Captain Rodriguez, who was now chief and directed the LAPD's Special Cases Department, Jessica's case remained the defining moment of his career. It was the first case officially resolved through non-conventional methods, a new category that had to be created specifically for situations that exceeded standard scientific explanations. In 2020, 18 years after the original disappearance, Jessica appeared to have gained even more control over her ability to navigate between dimensions. She could stay in physical reality for increasingly longer periods and seemed to have access to knowledge from multiple temporal lines. She became an informal advisor for the Department of Unconventional Phenomena that the LAPD had established for investigating similar cases. Her unique perspective on the nature of reality helped resolve other mysteries that seemed to defy conventional explanations. The UCLA campus courtyard became a pilgrimage site for science students and researchers from around the world who wanted to understand consciousness phenomena that transcended normal boundaries of space and time. A discreet memorial was erected next to the bench where Jessica had been seen for the last time in 2002, with the inscription, "For minds that dare to explore the mysteries of existence." And every October 15th at 11 p.m., Jessica appears in the campus courtyard, not as a spectral and fragmented presence as in the beginning, but as a radiant young woman with wisdom that surpasses her years, who found a way to exist between worlds, serving as a bridge between the known and unknown. Her story became testimony to the power of knowledge and determination. In seeking to understand the nature of time and consciousness, Jessica chose to become something new, a being that exists simultaneously in multiple realities, demonstrating that the boundaries between possible and impossible are far more fluid than conventional science believed. For those who know and love her, Jessica Martinez is no longer a missing person. She is a pioneer explorer in a dimension of existence that humanity is just beginning to perceive, a guide for those who want to understand that reality is far more mysterious and beautiful than appearances suggest. And always, at the bench in the UCLA campus courtyard, her mother Carmen waits, knowing her daughter will return to spend a little more time together, demonstrating that love transcends all barriers, including those between parallel dimensions and different temporal lines, because some connections are so strong that neither time nor space can truly break them.